Are you a natural born leader? I want to share with you what I believe you are and how realizing this changed my whole mindset. Hopefully, it'll change yours also. Welcome to another episode of Manhood Monday. I'm your host, Clifton Brandley, and I'm glad you are tuning in for this episode, right? Talking about being born a leader. So check this out. Last week in my Created for Connection Marriage Masterclass, that's a masterclass that I have for married couples. In my class, we were talking about the roles of husbands in marriage. All right, what's the role of the husband? Previous week we did the roles of women, but last week was doing the roles of husbands. And so I prepared that content, but then after that, I started to do more study on the topic of manhood, right? And as I begin to study manhood even more, I discovered something really powerful, and I hope it's powerful for you too, right? So listen, I believe most people would agree that the husband is the head of the home, right? But what does it mean to be the head? It means to be the leader, the one in charge, right? The one in authority over the house. Now, sadly, a lot of men either don't know what it means to be a leader, or they don't believe they are a leader. This then creates a leadership deficiency, right? This deficiency doesn't just affect marriage, right? When men don't lead, it creates a leadership deficiency, and that doesn't just show up in marriage; it affects society, right? Now, although I believe, let me just say this: although I believe that all men could benefit from what I'm sharing, I'm especially talking to the men who feel like they were not born to lead, or don't know what it means to lead, because hopefully by the end of this, I will have changed your mind. All right. Now, I believe that anybody can learn how to lead. Anybody can learn to be a leader, and you can become good at it, right? But a lot of times, men don't lead. Men don't learn how to lead because they don't believe that leadership is part of who they are, right? They believe that leadership is for certain kind of people. Me personally, I know I'm a leader, but it is only recently that I realized that I was born to lead, right? When I realized that I was born to lead, my whole attitude about manhood changed. Like, the whole thing changed. Let me break it down for you so you'll see why I say that if you are a man, you were born to lead, right? Now, some of this may be controversial, okay? It may be a little controversial, but I stand firm on what I'm about to share you, right? So when I look at the creation story, okay, marriage is pretty clear that God's original design was for the man to lead, right? God's original design included men leading and women following. That's what I see in the creation story and in the first marriage, right? Now think about it. When God decided to create humans, he created the male human first, right? I think that's significant. I think that's important, right? He created the male human first. He then said, I'm going to make for him, Adam, a helper. Now, because God is sovereign, meaning no one can check him, and because he's omniscient, meaning he has all knowledge, and because he is intentional, meaning he's not random, he knew how to create a female first if he wanted to. But that's not what he did. He created the male human first, not the female human. He could have created them at the same time if he wanted to, but he created Adam first and then Eve. Right in 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 12, it says, I don't permit women to have authority over men. This is Paul talking, right? And he says, for God made Adam first, and then afterwards he made Eve. right? And then Paul says it was not Adam that was deceived by Satan. The woman was deceived, right? And so I just point that out to reiterate or make the point that I was making about the man being created first and there's significance in that, okay? Now, let me say this. I don't know why God chose the man to be the head or the leader. Like, I don't know. But in his sovereign will, that's the choice he made, right? But as I wonder about the reason he did that, I noticed something else, right? Not only did he intentionally make the man the leader, but it's some other things connected to the male human being that I think is significant. Check this out. So God is a spirit, right? In the spirit realm, there is no gender. You feel me? But gender is an earthly concept. Gender is an earthly concept, and it refers to the type of body you have here on earth, right? See, I understand that people are going to disagree with what I'm saying about gender, but in the Bible it says God created him, male and female. He created them. So God created gender. So I understand that we have changed the meaning of gender to fit our own twisted ideas about life. But I hope you understand that when man changes what God has established, and that change is without God's instruction, the result is chaos. I'm gonna say that again. When man changes what God has established, and that change is not happening because God gave instruction to change, the result is chaos. What's the definition of chaos? Chaos is complete disorder and confusion, right? Complete disorder and confusion. Nobody's going to tell me like people are not confused today of whether or not they're a man or a woman. It's because we've changed, or at least attempt to change, what God already established, right? So gender, meaning male and female, is how God distinguishes the two bodies. You feel me? One body's male, one body's female. The culture's way of looking at gender is different. In culture, gender is, as a matter of fact, gender has become a set of expectations and standards and, characteristics about how men and women are supposed to act. But that's not God's way. You feel me? So, and I'm just giving you that little bit about gender, because I know when you start talking about gender, people get in their feelings and they get sensitive or whatever. This talk is not about gender. Well, actually, maybe it is, but not the way you may be thinking. But anyway, let me get back to my point. So I was saying God is a spirit, right? He does not have gender. God is not male or female, right? He doesn't have a body. Gender describes the type of body you have, whether or not you have a penis or a vagina. God don't have either one of those. So he's not male or female. But isn't it interesting that God refers to himself as he? Obviously, that's not because he is a he, right? But I believe, this is what I believe. I believe God describes himself in written form as he to help us earthlings be able to understand and relate to him in a way that makes sense. That's what I believe. Remember, our understanding of God and things beyond earth and even stuff on earth is very, 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 very limited, right? We're very limited in our knowledge of things beyond ourselves mostly, right? So when he refers to himself as a he, I think that's significant, right? Okay, so God refers to himself as he. Bet. Now, when the Hebrew boys were thrown into the fiery furnace, right? The king said, hey, didn't we throw 3 men in the fire bound? Yeah, king, that's what we did. And then the king says, hey, well, look, I see 4 men walking around. And watch this, the 4th one looks like the Son of God. He did not say the daughter of God. He said the Son of God. But let me make the next point. Okay, so you got God calling himself he. You see in the Old Testament a pagan king recognizing the son, male gender of God, right? He just called it he, right? Called the what he saw he. And then God decides, so when God comes to earth to reconcile humanity back to himself, he needs a body. Because see, this is the physical realm. This is not spiritual realm. Spirits can't live on the planet without a body. So when Jesus came, he had to choose a body. Now, there are only two kinds of bodies for him to choose from: male or female. He chose male. Taking it further, although Jesus had hundreds of disciples, right? He had hundreds of disciples, some of which were women. Jesus had female disciples. But the people he chose to be his inner circle, his apostles, the people he chose to leave the ministry in their hands, those were 12 men. Well, count 11 if Judas betrayed him, but then Paul stepped in. My point is, there were men. He chose them. He could have. There were women around. He could have chose some women. He did not. I'm talking about leadership right now. I understand that we humans have made things ugly and abusive and unfair for women, right? But you got to understand that was never God's intent, right? The way we men handle women, that was never God's design, right? Now, God created Adam first as a male human. God refers to himself as he, identifying with the male human, right? Jesus comes to earth having a choice. He chooses to live in a male human body. When I put all of this together, I can only conclude that in God's original design, men were meant to lead. I cannot find anywhere in scripture or anywhere else where, well, let me say it this way. I can't find anything that counters that would say some men are meant to lead. My assumption is that all men are meant to lead, right? So as I'm thinking about all of this, and as I remember, remember, spirits don't have gender, right? Spirits are gender neutral, right? So as I'm thinking about this, and the fact that spirits don't have a gender, it then makes me think, when I was with God, meaning before I came to earth to live in my mother's stomach so that I could be born, before that, I was just a spirit. When I was with God, I was just a spirit. Are you with me? I was not male or female, because spirits are not male or female, right? Now, because I don't believe that God is random about anything he does, and because I believe that spirits can only do what God tells them to do, I have to conclude that God made a decision to send my spirit, me, to the planet and put it in a male body. Does it really happen that way? Well, when I read the book of Jeremiah, you remember in Jeremiah, I think it's the first chapter, first verse. He told Jeremiah, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you, and I called you. In other words, before I sent you to the earth, I had already determined certain things about your life. Right? I already determined certain things about your life and how I intended for you to live it out. Now, this is the creator of the universe, the all-powerful, all-perfect God saying, I know the plans I have for you. I created you with a purpose, with intent, and then I sent you to the planet. Fellas, the same is true for you. The same is true for you. If you were born because, you were born, not if you were born, you were born because God sent you here. Your parents may not have planned you. Like, some people are born out of rape. Some people are born out of one-night stands. Some people are born because parents are married and they planned it. However you got here, you are not an accident for God. He sent you here, right? The body he sends you to live in is an indication of whether or not he has already decided if you would be a leader or a helper. So, if you are a man, and by man I mean born with a penis, if you are a man, you were born to lead. This actually hit me pretty hard, right? Because the reason this hit me so hard because it overrides any beliefs that I have about whether or not I'm supposed to be a leader. Like, it overrides that because what I think don't matter. I don't know if I should be a leader. Maybe I should be a leader. If the creator has already determined you get a leader body, I don't have to question that anymore. But it also, watch this, it also makes me embrace all of what it means to be a man. And it makes me even more eager to discover what he intended real manhood to be and look like. Why? Because he sent me here to be one. So I want to know what that means. Like it revolutionized my thinking just about manhood. So I've never been the kind of guy who would give in to society's idea of what a man is, right? You got to be, hyped up on masculine. Like you got to take, 12 cups of testosterone every morning, and you got to, wear your emotions on your sleeve, and you always got to be ready to bust a cap or be angry and throw hands, and you got to be aggressive, and you got to, have a deep voice. I got a deep voice, at least I think I do. Anyway, like their idea of manhood, I never really embraced that. But there are some things that I now think was part of God's plan that I've rejected about manhood because I thought that was society's idea, right? And we'll talk more about that later. But I'm just talking about how realizing God sent me here to be a leader because he put me in a male body. It would not make sense for him to put me in a male body if I'm not supposed to lead, if males lead. If you were unsure, if you're born a leader, I hope this now helps you be sure. If you are a man and you're unsure, I don't know if I'm supposed to be a leader. I hope this helps, right? Now, just because all men are born to lead does not mean that every man will lead. I understand that, right? Some men will abuse their authority and hurt women. Yep. Some will choose to chase their pleasures and fantasies and refuse to lead. Some won't grow up, so they can't lead, right? Some will choose to call God, some will choose to call God a liar and decide, I want to be a female. None of that changes the reality that if you are a man, you were born to lead, even though you may choose not to, okay? But for those of you that want to lead well, I encourage you to stay tuned into these Manhood Mondays because we're going to be talking about how to become a leader and how to be good at it, right? We're going to be exploring that like in the future when we're talking about manhood. Being born a leader isn't enough to become a leader, right? You were born to be a leader, but you have to decide if you are going to become a leader, right? You need to be trained. But before we do that, I want to establish the fact that leader is already a part of your God-given identity. It is. It ain't something you got to go look for. You just got to believe what's already there. Okay. Now, in the future, we'll talk about what it means to truly be a man, truly be a leader, right? And we're going to talk about, like I said, I think I mentioned this last time, but we're going to talk about pornography. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about discipline, self-discipline, right? We're going to talk about all of these things in the coming weeks. So I hope you guys stay tuned. Until next week, y'all take care.